So we've been gardening for several years now, but over the last couple years, a few key things have really shaped what we grow and why we grow it. And it has really evolved into us being able to grow the most nutrient dense, the most flavorful, and also food that we can store all year round. And it has really led us to select really unique varieties, and we're gonna share with you some of the things that we've learned and resources and how we've gotten to where we are today.
First things first, it was a big day for us on the homestead today. We took out our big, ugly bushes in the front of our house. And
this has been like a thing that we have been trying to do or wanting to do pretty much since we moved in almost 2 years ago. It's like an eyesore.
We'll throw up some like before and after pictures for you, but we bought like a foreclosed 1950s ranch, and they're like those stereotypical big sprawling evergreen bushes lining the whole front of the house, and we just, from the moment we moved in, we wanted those gone. And so it was a day-long project. I'm pretty exhausted from it, but got in there with a chainsaw and went to town, pulled out those bushes. It's a little bittersweet because like no one likes killing a living thing. It's like cutting down a living tree. You never want to do it, but they're productive. They provide
shade.
They provided shade for the house, kept things cool. Our chickens loved hanging out in those bushes. There was all sorts of bugs and snakes in there for them. But anyways, but we ultimately wanted something more productive in that space. Something that's I guess two aspects of it. One, something that looks a little better.
I'm so excited to plant wildflowers there.
Yeah, so we're gonna put some wildflowers in, maybe put some, we have asparagus we're gonna plant there, and then maybe long term get some other like fruit bushes or
perennial
something.
Fruit bushes, yeah.
Yeah, so we're excited for what it's going to be.
Make it a little more productive for us.
Yeah.
And pretty.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, but back to the topic for today. So gardening and what to grow. Like I feel like people just gets to be, you're picking out your seeds, what do you grow? You're thumbing through the catalogs and you just kind of pick what sounds good or what you've always grown or what you've seen at the grocery store or however you select what you've grown. And we've been there. Like that's probably how we would have selected varieties of things, right? Like you grow tomatoes and you get the slicers and you get what you like or you get what you know. But over the years, our thoughts have really shifted as we've kind of delved deep into this idea of really wanting to select the most nutrient dense foods. And so our background and our history is that we kind of came into this whole farming space because we were really unhealthy. we were really sick. We were newly married. We were young. We were in our, low 20s, and we were really unhealthy. And we ate a very conventional, standard American diet with mainly processed foods. I mean, I really think like the number of foods I ate was so minimal, especially like fruits and vegetables. Very little variety, very little health in our diet. And so around that time, we were struggling with some health things, with fertility issues and hormone imbalance, with skin issues and mood issues and just lots of issues.
Digestive
issues. We just were not in a great place. And around that time, we were talking to my sister actually, who's a chiropractor, and she's like, have you tried your diet or have you thought about your diet and have you thought about eating real foods instead of processed foods? And I was like, oh, that's an interesting thought. Like that makes a lot of sense. And yeah, I won't get into the fact that I actually majored in dietetics, so you'd think that I would know these things, but that wasn't really talked about in my schooling so much, sad as it is. But anyways, so yeah, she's like, maybe you should think about eating real foods and not processed foods. I was like, that makes a lot of sense. And so I'm kind of an extreme person. Within, a week or even maybe a couple days, I had like tossed all the processed food out of our pantry and fridge and freezer, like started going to the grocery store and getting all the produce and, going to the farmer's market and getting all the things. And all of a sudden I was like shopping for a half a beef and raw milk and all the things within a really short amount of time. But it was amazing. And we saw huge changes in our health and yeah, lots of things. We've got a whole story and videos about kind of our story and what got us here. But that idea of just incorporating the most nutrient dense food into our diet has been huge for us because we've seen the results. We've seen what it does and how it can change your health. And so as we thought about growing food, that was a big priority for us. Is like, we don't just want to grow any old standard variety. We want to grow the best varieties that's going to provide the most bang for our buck nutrition-wise that's out there.
Yeah. And I think just to preface all of this too a little bit, like, we didn't grow up, neither of us grew up gardening. Like,
No.
we're not professional gardeners by any stretch of the imagination. Like, we just picked it up. Like, we first got through that journey, we first got connected to some local farms and we're buying from them. And then we were like, hey, we should probably start trying to figure out how to grow our own food if we're going to be eating a lot of,
Right. So we started volunteering at farms, and we started, doing a worker share for a CSA program and things like that, and learning from some experts.
Yeah, but neither one of us went to school for agriculture or took classes on this stuff. We
grew up doing it.
Have tried things.
I really feel like, though, gardening is one of those things that, like, you can read books all you want, but you kind of just need to go out there and you just need to do it.
Yeah.
Like, it's just kind of one of those hands-on, like, that's going to be the best experience.
Yeah. And we do have some other videos that we made on, like, kind of our method of, like, how we make our own seed starting mix and how we start seeds indoors in these, like, really simple, basic ways. And that's just the way we go about our gardening, is, like, we don't have fancy
very simple
equipment. We have basic, like, hand tools and things like that we use, and we just get things in the ground and plant it.
But you can grow a lot of food. Like, we pretty much, in our first year on our farm, were able to basically meet our family's needs food-wise for the entire year on things that we grew. And so what did we grow, right? That's the question. And so a huge part of our journey has been, like I said, growing the most nutrient-dense food. And this book I found so helpful. It's called Eating on the Wild Side by Joe Robinson, and it says here, a radical new way to select and prepare foods to reclaim the nutrients and flavor that we've lost. And so she dives so deep. I think she was an investigative journalist, and she dives so deep into, like, just basically laying out, like, every single fruit and vegetable and plant variety and just sharing how you can get your most bang for your buck in what you select at the grocery store, what you grow in your garden, to get the most nutrients out of that food, both in selecting which types of varieties you grow and then how you prepare it and how you cook it. Because there are so many things that, like, we're eating raw, but really you're going to get way more nutrients if you cook them. And it's just having this knowledge and knowing these things that can radically change your nutrition status and what you're getting. And it's powerful, and it's so interesting too.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, and I remember hearing a statistic a couple years back. Anyways, it was the average American today eats, I think it's like 12 different varieties of plants in a year. And if you look at, like, with Native Americans, they ate in their diet was like hundreds of plants. I don't remember the exact number, but they had hundreds of different plants that kind of made up their nutritional profile of what they were eating and foraging and growing and everything. And just such a stark difference there. And just, I think shows, like, how lacking we are in kind of our, just the breadth of our
well, and you think about that, it's just like the nutrients, so you have your vitamins and your minerals, but also just the different, floras and the bacterias and all these things of how this is feeding us when we're really only eating, especially, like, conventionally grown food from the grocery store with, like, all the same variety, all your standard russet potatoes and your, I don't know, Jonagold apples. I don't even know what they have at the store. I haven't been in a while, but
yeah.
But really basic stuff. But when you can, really focus on incorporating more variety and more unique things, it can really impact your health. It can impact even just the flavor of foods. Like, there's such a stark difference in the taste of growing some of these unique heirloom varieties. So highly recommend this book. It just goes so deep into it. But some of the big takeaways for us in terms of selecting what we grow is she talks about how with a lot like color makes such a big difference, right? So the deeper, more rich, robust colors, the darker the colors, like those are going to have way more nutrients than lighter varieties. So we always like potatoes. We grew so many Adirondack blue potatoes and Magic Molly, which is another variety of purple potatoes. And so you're getting these potatoes that are deep, deep purple on their insides, on their outsides. And there are so many more nutrients in those potatoes. They taste the same. I mean, they taste even better, I think.
They taste delicious.
They taste so
they're
good.
awesome.
It's not like they're, and they provide so many more nutrients because of the color profile of these potatoes. And so that's a big one that we've selected. And pretty much when we're going through a seed catalog or selecting what we want to grow, like these are the things that we're looking for. So picking maybe purple cabbage over green cabbage, or carrots, like really getting the deep orange or even the purple carrots. With beets, selecting the deep red purple beets as opposed to maybe the like you see the like striped pink, like lighter pink ones, or even the yellow ones. Like really going for those deep colors is going to give you so much more bang for your buck. So that's a huge guiding principle for how we choose the foods that we grow.
Yeah, and I think just another example there is we started growing like a dent corn that is like we dry out, we store, and we grind into cornmeal. And that one too, like when we were going through the seed catalog, we picked out, it's called Oaxacan green dent corn.
Yeah.
And it's just this really unique variety. It's got these amazing colors to it, these dark greens and yellows. It's a beautiful corn and delicious. But again, that was another example of just picking based more on nutrition and taste versus just going with like the standard yellow corn that you see.
Like what you know.
But anyways, and that kind of leads into like the other category of kind of...
Yeah, and just real quick, one thing. Like there's some other really cool things, guys. Like tomatoes, she says here, she has this whole like just tips on the back, but red cherry tomatoes have 12 times more lycopene than red beefsteak cherry tomatoes. And she talks about that a lot in the book, that the size is also important. And when you harvest things, that smaller varieties of things tend to be way more packed with nutrients than larger things. And so getting those cherry tomatoes as opposed to the big, honkin' slicer, huge ones, there's going to be more vitamins and minerals in those tiny ones, which is just so interesting that we don't, know these things. And so it's more this perspective of eating kind of how food grew in wild before we, did lots of different things to it.
Yeah,
and it got cultivated over time. So anyways, there's just lots of really interesting tips of just how to select seed and how to select both what you could buy in the grocery store and what to grow that could really change it. But like things like color and things like size have really guided what we've chosen.
Yeah, definitely.
Go ahead.
And so this book, The Resilient Gardener by Carol Deppe, has also been really influential in our overall food journey and our gardening and just kind of our philosophy behind what we grow. But she talks about growing 5 crops: potatoes, corn, beans, squash, and eggs. And so the last one's, I guess, growing chickens or ducks for eggs is kind of a protein source. But specifically, we really shifted just last year into trying to grow more of these storage crops of potatoes, corns, beans, and squash. And we did like this big Three Sisters garden, which is growing corn and then beans that kind of climb up the corn, and then you kind of grow squash all throughout it as like a ground cover. And it's just this awesome system of growing food and specifically getting these crops that, like, man, we've got like a decade's worth of corn stored up in our basement right now, and like a bunch of squash.
We like grew. I think we just wanted to we wanted to know where our food was coming from all year. And we figured, like, if we can grow things that store well all year, like, why wouldn't we be doing that? Like, you can only eat so much, you know, June through September. So you might as well use the space to grow things that you're going to be eating and enjoying in June through September, but that you could also be enjoying and eating October through, you know, May as well.
Yeah. So even like the potatoes that we picked some like real hardy storage potatoes. There's a variety called Elbas that we are still eating through those now, and it's May.
Yeah, and they're really storing very well in May.
They're awesome.
Last year.
And so so things like that.
Yeah, focusing on storage varieties. Other things, because you know, like, that was a good start, but again, like, I'm all about nutrient density, and I always hear like corn, beans, potatoes, and I'm kind of like, well, those are great, but like, I want like the really nutrient dense varieties, and like, there's nutrients in those for sure. There's really good nutrients in it, but like, even just to give us some more variety and what else can we grow. So we've actually, when we pick things for our garden, instead of thinking like, what are we going to enjoy? Like I said, June through September, I'm thinking like, what can we grow and how can I preserve this to last us all year? And so we're still going through carrots, like deep orange, beautiful carrots, dark red beets, like they store, root vegetables store so well. So we still have plenty of those, and they're doing great. They are storing so well. I'm still eating sauerkraut from cabbage and selecting like the deep purple cabbages. You know, we're still going through our tomato sauce that we canned. And so just thinking through, when we grow things, how can we grow things that are going to feed us all year round instead of just kind of in these couple months? I think this idea of trying to go back to, like Jim said, like, how can we go from eating 12 varieties of things to like hundreds of varieties of things? Like, how can we get more different things, different nutrients, different plant varieties, different species of things into our diet? And how can we be in charge of doing that? And I think, yeah, cultivating different varieties in your garden specifically, and even doing things like learning how to forage for wild edible plants too is awesome. Like, those are also things that we're really trying to learn and incorporate. And right now I'm like picking nettle every day because it's my favorite green ever, and I love nettle so much. But just things like that of like, what are unique things that maybe you've never thought of, maybe you don't have at the grocery store, that you can kind of explore and try and see. Maybe that's a new favorite thing that you've never heard of. Yeah, I don't know. Do you have anything to add?
Yeah, I think like going back to the grocery store thing, like just about everything you're going to find in the grocery store is based on the industrial system of groceries. And so it's nothing there is being selected for the peak taste and like culinary, you know, experience,
the
and nutritional experience of, you know, your family. It's being selected for not bruising easily and transporting easily and storing on grocery store shelves easily, growing easily. Yeah. And so anyways, yeah, it's been awesome for us when we kind of learned that and just, I don't know, stepped outside the box of like the standard varieties of things that we've been eating our whole lives and said like, hey, there's a whole world out there of these awesome varieties of things, and like we want to try them, and
we've seen the benefits. Like, I feel like we felt so good, and not just in the summer, like we felt so good eating this food all year round. And it's just too, like, not only have we felt good physically, but it's just like this sense of purpose, and it's a really cool feeling knowing that you grew all this stuff. You know exactly where it came from. Like, I feel so good about what I feed my family, and just knowing like what's in it, like for real, what's in it, and knowing that we hand selected these unique varieties for nutritional value and all these things. It's really exciting. So anyway, so that's how we go about selecting what we grow in our garden to really optimize our nutrition and to optimize for food preservation and storage. And so if you want to hear more about that, we have a video that I'll link to next of how our family in our first year on our new homestead was able to grow enough food to feed our family for the full year, and kind of what we did and how we did that and what we grew exactly. And so we'll link to that video next, but we would love to hear from you. What do you like to grow? What are your kind of, how do you select your varieties and what you grow over? Do you have some favorites? We'd love to hear about them. We're always looking to add new things into our repertoire and trying new things. So we'd love if you wanted to share those with us. If you want to comment below, that would be awesome. So thanks so much for watching, and we'll see you in that next video.